Hello, friends, and welcome. This is Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health, the official healthcare partner for SU Athletics. My name is Brent Axe, and it's going to be a quick stay in our nation's capital, or as Forrest Gump would say, our nation's capital, as Syracuse fell to NC State in the ACC Tournament tonight. Final score, NC State 83, Syracuse 65. Syracuse's, let's face it, pretty abysmal showing in the ACC Tournament continues. They're now 5-9 overall in that event. And the big question now is, will the NIT come calling, and will Syracuse accept the bid if they do? Adrian Autry was asked about that in his post-game press conference. We'll give you his answer to that. But I'm wondering how you guys are feeling about that. Should they even bother with the NIT should it come calling? We'll discuss that, go over some key stats here. It's kind of a mix of this game certainly feels like the end of the season, even if they get another game or two in the NIT to come here, but people are certainly starting to peek over the horizon and look at what's to come with the portal and what this team's going to look like next year, and some players that are going to have to make some decisions there. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders have plenty to say on this one, so we will certainly read some of your great texts on the way here. But there's a couple of key stats from this one that really tell the tale. First of all is points off turnovers. NC State collected 30 points off 19 Syracuse turnovers. Autry mentioned it in his press conference. We gave the ball away way too much. You think Syracuse, which remember beat NC State twice this year, the old adage of how hard it is to beat a team 3 times in a season came true for Syracuse in this game. Syracuse out-rebounded 40-31. That doesn't sound like a lot. And Syracuse actually led for a good part of this game in the rebounding department before NC State lapped them there, but it was the offensive rebounds that killed Syracuse. Wolfpack 17, Syracuse 8 in that department. Second chance points 20-7 for NC State in that department. So they really ate up Syracuse on the points off turnover, second chance points as well. Syracuse just could not keep pace there. There was a big disparity in one stat in this game. And guys, both things can be true. The officiating can be absolutely abysmal, and it was. That's the second time I've used that word, so it shows you how strongly some things were in this game for Syracuse in that department. That can be true, and Syracuse can play. It's amazing how many blowout losses this team had for a 20-win team, how many losses you look and you see them lose by 16, 18, 20 points this season. But how does NC State get to the free throw line 24 times and Syracuse gets to the free throw line 6? That is unacceptable. Tony Henderson, Roger Ayers, I forget the third guy on this crew, totally blew it there. There was one play in particular. Now, again, both things can be true. Judah Mintz gets whacked in the face by DJ Horn, and nothing is called. Now, Judah Mintz lost his temper in that moment, said some things. Clearly, you didn't have to be good at lip reading to see what he said to Tony Henderson. Henderson teased him up. Mintz had to go to the bench for a little bit to get looked at. And the guy got whacked in the face, and they don't even call that. How does DJ Horn end up with one foul in this game? Or DJ Burns, pardon me. DJ Horn came back for NC State, had 16 points in this game. He was a game-time decision for NC State with the hip injury. 16 points, big second half for him. But how does Burns have one foul in this game? It's an utter joke. I'm not saying it would have swayed things one way or the other. Just call it evenly. How is a game this physical, that much disparity at the free throw line? So I think the officials blew it in this one. You hate to see it. It certainly feeds the conspiracy theories that fans have about how the ACC treats teams north of the Mason-Dixon line that happen to reside in their conference, and there's really nothing I can say to dispel you of those conspiracy theories. I don't think it's true, but I don't think I can convince you otherwise at this point. Just call it evenly. The officiating crew in this game let way too much go. Then the Judah Mintz was the most egregious play, but there were several plays. Like, look, I don't want the refs more involved. Let them play is what I say, but you got to do your job. 24-6 in free throw attempts. That's unfortunate, and you don't want to see that either way. You just want a game like this in the postseason decided by the players. So all told, Judah Mintz leads Syracuse with 21 points. He was 9 of 21. He had 21 shot attempts. J.J. Starling had 10. Quadir Copeland had 10. Chris Bell had 6. Malik Brown, a lone bright spot for Syracuse tonight with 11 points and 12 rebounds, just doing Malik Brown things as best as he could against Burns and the size that NC State had down low. But if you got Judah Mintz taking 21 shots, we're back to an offense that's not moving. He's taking control of the ball too much. And I get why Mintz had to do it on certain possessions, but they fell back into a lot of bad habits here. Look, I don't want to hear that they had to sit around for a week. Clearly, they were rusty in the first half. I'm not going to brush that aside. If you watched the game, you saw that. A lot of teams have to deal with that, okay? NC State got to play last night. They're a little more loose. They're a little more confident. I understand that. If you're a good team, Syracuse almost earned a double bye. If they had beat Clemson, they would have earned the double bye. And you get to sit for 2 days. What kind of excuse is that, right? If you get to sit for 2 days and you look like crap on a Thursday night. Look, it doesn't bother me that Syracuse is 5-9 in the ACC tournament. I don't care about conference tournaments. I never have. I know I'm in the minority there. I certainly don't care about them since Syracuse left the Big East and they're in this sterile corporate environment at the ACC tournament in Washington, D.C. Make it make sense for me, right? I just have never enjoyed that aspect of it. But Syracuse clearly needed this tournament. My feelings aside, they had to run the table. They had to win 4 games in this thing. Some people felt, maybe if they got to the championship game, they'd sneak in. No, not with their net ranking. There's too many teams stacked ahead of them. They had to win this thing. And they come out tonight and played one of their worst games. Again, falling back into old habits. Look, Judah Mintz, I get why he was upset about that one play, but he was jawing at the refs all night. Quadir Copeland, same thing. Look, guys, you got to shut your mouth and play the game. I get some frustration once in a while, but it is just a constant thing. And it's got to stop. I'm sure Autry has talked to them about that. He has to have at this point, but they don't listen. You're not a 4-year veteran. And I get that Judah's the leader of the team. He's the biggest face on the team. But you guys are sophomores, right? You can't work the refs like that. Judah gets a lot of calls, by the way, by and large. Not tonight. I totally ripped the refs, and for good reason, because they were awful in this game. But that has got to stop. And you start thinking about things for next year. Autry, I think, did a good job in a lot of ways, and people are going to start thinking about recapping the whole season. And do you consider it a successful season, even though they're not going to make the NCAA tournament, and the not interested tournament, as some people call it, looms here? But you had a 20-win season, and steps forward. 20 wins is more than Jim Boeheim had in his last 4 seasons at Syracuse. He didn't win more than 18 in that run. Syracuse is closer to where they need to be. I mentioned the balance of doing that, winning 6 of their last 9 in the regular season, yet they had all the blowout losses. Yin and yang, right? You're trying to balance the scales as best as you can, and now you got to see what even kind of team you're going to have next year. I mean, the transfer portal is just that reality in college basketball this year. But do you accept the NIT bid? Let me go to the poll here. I put a poll up on Twitter we're very biased poll with everybody all grumbling about this game, in the aftermath here. But I put a poll on Twitter, and it is, how are you feeling about the NIT? And as of this moment when I check it, it's got 1,346 votes, and 53% of them say pass. 47% of you say, I guess so, right? Autry tonight, let me give you a couple of his quotes. So Autry tonight, let me see here, guys. Give me 1 second here so I can find his quote. Here it is. A couple quotes from Adrian Autry. When you get your opportunity to be a head coach, you learn a lot. I could talk for 30 minutes about it. I was proud to have this team. I'm lucky to have this team. This is the team I needed, asked to reflect a little bit on the team in the season. Anytime you can play postseason basketball, you have to take it. He did add to that he has not crossed that bridge with this team at this point, but it seems like they're going to accept the bid to the NIT if they take it, which, by the way, I think you have to. I feel like I've got a cavity coming in, and I got to go to the dentist and take care of that. I'm not really looking forward to it, but in the long run, I've got to do that. Right? That's the NIT. You got to check the box. You hope the experience of it pays off in the long run. Again, I immediately question that, though, because who is going to gain that experience and be on this team next year, right? those are things you got to think about in college basketball these days with the portal and the realities of the sport, NIL, and everything that you're navigating through. Ultimately, I agree. I think you just got to take a deep breath and do it. I think they will get invited to the NIT, but he was asked about that. That's what he said. Autry also saying this, quote, "We're disappointed. It's hard to even think like that right now," asking to kind of reflect on the season as a whole. So there's a few things that Autry said about this one. Let's see what our Syracuse Sports Insiders say about this one tonight. We would love for you to become a Syracuse Sports Insider and join our growing community of Syracuse fans. Really fired up tonight, as you're going to see. You guys letting off some steam here on the text line. And to become a Syracuse Sports Insider, all you have to do is text the word orange to 315-847-3895. You text me, I text you. Breaking news first, my opinions first, my insight, my analysis. You get it every day. We take a Sunday off once in a while here and there, but anytime something comes up that you guys need to know about, something on my mind, I send it to you. You guys always come up with great questions for this post-game show, for our Syracuse Sports podcast, and for all things Syracuse sports related. So join our growing community of Syracuse sports fans by texting orange to 315-847-3895. And here's what you guys were saying tonight. Brian C., quite a leadoff hitter we have tonight. Syracuse picked the wrong game to have a bad game. Yeah, this is not the one you want to have a bad game. Look, I get that they were off for a week. I get you got to shake off a little rust here, but they didn't get better in the second half. Things got worse in the second half. They were out physical, out rebounded, second chance points. Like I said, the crap with arguing with the referees, and it just the immaturity of this team, which unfortunately has been there all year. And they did start to shed it a little bit down the stretch of the season, winning some games. You saw this team grow up. Certainly saw a lot of guys get better, notably Malik Brown. I thought Quadiro, though he had his ups and downs in this game, got better as much as Judah Mintz. I think this is one of those games you don't want to see him taking 21 shots. You want the ball to move around. There's no question this team would not be where they are without Judah Mintz. And I'm going to say this right now, okay? The fact that Judah Mintz was not first-team All-ACC, I think is a joke. Okay, this guy was a top 5 scorer, top 5 in steals, top 5 in assists. That's a first-team All-ACC player. That was a joke that he didn't make it there. Hi, Carl. My man Carl, who anytime I say anything bad about Judah, he's going to be down in those YouTube comments. Well, mark the tape, Carl, because I'm telling you right now, the fact that Judah was not first-team All-ACC was a joke. He absolutely deserved to be there, right? Malik Brown was on the all-defensive team. Quadir was the second in voting for Sixth Man of the Year. Autry finished third for Coach of the Year, behind Jeff Capel at Pitt and Hubert Davis at North Carolina, right? But they did pick the wrong game to have a bad game. What this team needed to rally, to bear down, win 4 in a row, and make a charge at the tournament, no matter the team, no matter the year, when Syracuse goes to the ACC tournament, it fizzles. Again, I don't really care by and large, but you've got to find a way to be successful in this thing, especially considering how many times since Syracuse has joined the ACC have they gone to this tournament needing games to get into the NCAA tournament. Okay, now in that run, you've got 2016 when they went to the Final Four, 2018 when they went to the Sweet 16, 2021 when they went to the Sweet 16. So they have kind of bucked that trend a few times, but by and large, they are terrible in this tournament. What are the great Syracuse ACC tournament moments? You know, when Buddy Boeheim punched a guy and got suspended? They don't have it. They don't have these moments. They still, a decade later, feel out of place at this thing, right? It doesn't feel like home every year. Gary Williams was there, the old Maryland coach, and I think he, like everybody, has a podcast now. And I saw my friend Joe Giglio, shout out to him, who also has a great podcast, by the way. And Gary Williams was, I don't have the exact quotes, but it was basically like he coached at Maryland, and Maryland should be at this tournament, right? Every year when this comes along, everybody feels so out of place. You can shuffle the deck all you want, conference realignment, and that's the way the sport is today, yada, yada, yada. Syracuse is always out of place at this thing, and they never play well in it either. That's a problem when you're a fringe bubble team more often than not, and you need these wins. You need these games. So that is something, I don't know how you figure it out, right? Like, it's easy for me to say, how do you make a team play better after being off for a week? But that's the kind of showing they put out there tonight. Like, that leaves a bad taste in your mouth going into the offseason. I think I can say no matter what they do in the NIT, right? I don't think anybody cares what they do in the NIT. The only time anybody ever cared what Syracuse did in the NIT was when in 2007 when they got screwed out of the NCAA tournament. And like there was 25,000 pissed off Syracuse fans at the Dome rooting them through in what was a nice run through the NIT. It's the only time anybody's ever cared about it, right? Let's go on with our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Tony says, I will watch if NIT comes calling, but truthfully, I'm ready for next year. I think Tony feels, I think you speak for the majority there, my friend. From Paul S., their season was on the line and they folded like a cheap suit. Once a little adversity hit, that's on the players as well, but mostly on him. I think him meaning Autry. He adds, to answer your question from Monday, no, this season was not a success. So if you missed it, and if you did, why? Please subscribe, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Go back and listen to Syracuse Sports from earlier this week. The question at hand was, can you consider this, and it was both the men and the women, by the way, can you consider their seasons a success no matter what happens in the postseason? So remember that the women's team got bounced early from the ACC tournament as well. The difference being they don't need it. They're in the NCAA tournament. Maybe if they made a deep run, they get a top four seed, which means they get home games. So Syracuse, the women's team now, they're not going to get home games in the NCAA tournament. So you want to try and land on the Albany side of the bracket. So if they can win a couple of games on the road, you're playing a regional in Albany. And how huge would that be, right? So I think their season can be considered a success. And I did say yes to the men's team, just considering the improvement and all things considered. Look, the injuries this team had, the dismissal of Benny Williams, you look at it from a big picture perspective to get to 20 wins, I think is a heck of a job. And that's why Autry got all those Coach of the Year votes. But man, to slip out like this, let's say they slip out like this and lose in the first round of the NIT, that's not a good taste in your mouth. So they've got some work to do to kind of change that narrative going into the postseason. From Brian A., who says, not to be that guy, but this is what every ACC tournament game has been like for the last 10 years. I hate that I typed that, but go to the videotape. I don't think we need to. We believe you, Brian. There are certain things in this world these days that you do have to go to the videotape, and then people still don't believe you. And that's all I'll say about that. But in this case, we don't need to. We believe you. No conspiracies necessary. From Frank S., who says, as Bob Seeger would say, time to turn the page. 17 turnovers will kill any team. I hate ending a season like this. But let's look to next year. Frankie, I think it was 19 turnovers in this one tonight, right? Whatever it was way too many. Richard B. says SU saved the worst for last. Out of control passing, no access to the rim, sloppy turnovers, missed assignments, manhandled by a team that they beat twice. From Different Jeff, who says, unfortunately, this one was over when they got down by 15. All of their shortcomings came to roost in this one. I guess it's hopefully onto the NIT. I think they're going to get in the NIT. I had some people asking me elsewhere, like, are they even in the NIT? Yeah, they're in. They'll get an NIT bid. I don't think there's any question about that, even with what happened tonight. There is a great Twitter feed. It's called the Barking Crow that tracks all things NIT. And last I looked at it, Syracuse had a 90% chance of getting into the NIT. One loss here doesn't change that. So not that I'm going to enthusiastically, I'm looking more forward to the women's team playing lacrosse, the St. Patrick's Day parade in Syracuse this weekend, than watching the NIT selection show Sunday night. So we need that sad clown horn. Welcome to the NIT selection show. Brian T. says, discouraging performance due to inadequate preparation, either strategy and or psychologically, a.k.a. overconfident, outcoached, outplayed. Timmy C. says, it's a shame they had to lose so badly to a not very good team. What an awful way to end the season. The NIT is becoming our normal postseason tournament. I think you got to give some credit to NC State putting aside the horrible officiating in this game. DJ Horn came back, looked good. They were careful with him. He went to the locker room at one point, but came right back. Great in the second half, even with the hip injury. They used Burns wisely. He should have been called for more than one freaking foul in this game, which, again, just bewilders my mind. But obviously, they couldn't handle him physically. The rebounding, the second chance points. Like, this is what NC State should have done in the first two games they played Syracuse and did some of. Now, remember, one of the NC State games was when Chris Bell went absolutely off from three-point range and, like, pointed to his back and say, let's go, boys. We're winning this one tonight. Bell, there's a point there. I'm not sure if any of the texters brought it up, so we should note it here. Bell, who finished with 11 points in this game, he ended up fouling out, which is notable because Bell picks up 2 quick fouls in this game. Autry's philosophy there is if you get those quick, and they were quick, they were before the first TV timeout. He sat for a long, long time after that. I think that was a mistake on Autry's part. I think that Chris Bell should have come back a lot sooner than that. They couldn't space the floor as well without him out there. They needed a spark offensively. Obviously, he tried to. He gave him a little bit of that in the second half, led off the second half with a three-pointer. But if you want to look at strategy in this one, that was a mistake on Autry's part. Keeping Bell on the bench as long as he did in the first half, yet he had 2 fouls, but this is kind of all hands on deck postseason situation. I think Autry's got to learn from that. I think he'll look back at the film, and I think he'll regret that. He needed to be in that game a lot sooner than he was. Get that you got to sit him for a bit with 2 fouls. And guys, like we've talked about this all year, like Justin Taylor, 2 points, 1 for 5 in 25 minutes. Justin Taylor just, by and large, you can talk all you want about his defensive rotations and his rebounding. He was better around the basket at the end of the season, but they've got to take a hard look at that in the offseason here. And I think, I don't have any inside information here. I'm just speculating, but one would think he's going to be a prime candidate for the transfer portal. You got Donnie Freeman coming in next year. You can shift Malik Brown back to his natural position at the 4. You've got some recruits coming in that shift the lineup a little bit. Obviously, the portal is sitting there. I think Syracuse is going to have to hit the portal for a center, for some big men. Yeah, Naheem McLeod comes back, but he's coming off an injury, and you can't count on him to be a consistent 28 to 30-minute guy for this team. Moni Rahima is moving on. He did senior day ceremonies. I think the writing's on the wall that he's not back. Peter Carey is not a starter in the ACC. They need a true center. They need a player. Now, William Patterson, we'll see. Nobody's seen him play enough to have an opinion on that. So maybe he can prove me wrong and be the guy, but I just don't see a scenario where Justin Taylor gets big minutes next year. He just didn't prove it enough, particularly on the offensive end. Like him a lot, good kid. Always appreciated that he was available in the locker room, would talk about the struggles, would talk through it, certainly was aware of the noise that was out there. But if you're just looking at it objectively and you're looking at the numbers and you're looking at what he's got to do offensively, he did not deliver tonight. 1 for 5, missed a bunch of bunnies at the hoop. That's not what he's there to do, right? So that's one of those hard questions you got to ask. When they have those postseason meetings, when they're kind of come to Jesus meetings and you get told the real truth about what your role is going forward, I don't know. We're going to have to see about that. Michael B. adds in, or, did I read Michael MC's comment? This absolutely the worst game of the year. No resemblance of any kind of offense. I will admit the calls are brutal, but letting it go both ways. But 24 free throws to 6? Like, come on, that's brutal. Michael B. This looks like an exhibition game for Syracuse with how sloppy they were on both ends of the floor. That's been Syracuse all year, hot and cold from game to game, even half to half. And typically Syracuse is a first half team, right? But they were rusty in the first half tonight, but they were even worse in the second half. I mean, NC State went on an 18-2 run at one point. So that vaunted defense, I shouldn't say vaunted defense, that's the wrong thing to say, that inconsistent defense that Syracuse had, zone man, whatever the case may be. Look, we snuffed that out like a month ago. This is going to be a team that wins with offense. You've got to make stops if you're going to put a winning streak together. Syracuse went on such a hot streak offensively, all those high-scoring games down the stretch of the season. You got to play some defense. And, again, the officials didn't balance that out tonight. But you got to make stops to put some wins together, and that's something that obviously needs some improvement in the offseason. From Scotty M, it says, can we all agree that Cuse basketball keeps this up? It won't be worth caring so much every year unless the tournament lets everyone in soon. No, I can't agree on that, Scott. I can't agree on that. I think as a fan, look, I get how frustrating it is. This is the 3rd straight season that Syracuse has missed the NCAA tournament. That has not happened here since the mid-1960s. That is an eternity by Syracuse standards. Nobody is brushing that aside. That's not the orange standard that Autry is trying to set. My thing was if they went into the postseason with a chance to make the NCAA tournament. I think you had to mark that. Success is maybe a strong word, but you had to mark that as a season where you feel like you're making progress, right? But the pressure's on to make the tournament next year. I mean, let's say it right now here on March 13th. You got to get in the tournament next year. You cannot miss the tournament 4 years in a row for Syracuse basketball. That is unacceptable. And if you think 3 in a row is unacceptable, I don't blame you at all, even with the things you have to build in with a first-year coach and the transition and everything. Look, that's the standard here. It's the one you set, and it's the one you're now trying to build back up to. So let's be real. Let's be honest about that here, okay? But for Scott, I can't agree with that, man. Can we just say, we can't care about this? I mean, it's your team. You got to care. But the beauty about following your team and caring about your team is you can give them the tough love, right? But I think you got to be there, right? Like, I can't see that. But look, where you live in a world where people have more options, more entertainment options, I can't, when I was a kid, back in my day, but man, this was my life. Growing up in Syracuse, New York, following Syracuse sports, like I can't conceive of not doing anything else, but that's my brain, right? We live in a world now, not to, unless they ban your TikToks, kids. But look, kids are more on social media. They're on TikTok. They have shorter attention spans. They're not as passionate about sports as my generation is, as the generation above me is. And I'm not calling you old, your experience. But well, we could do a whole show on this, and perhaps we will in the offseason when it comes. But what I'm trying to say here, my long-winded way of saying is people do have shorter attention spans. There are more fair weather fans, right? I'm not saying that makes it right. I'm just saying that's the way of the world today. But I get what you're saying in a way, Scotty. From ALS, who says this, sorry, but Red sealed this team's fate when he kicked Benny off the team and continued to place unwarranted faith in Justin Taylor. He also notes, when was the last time an SU team suffered this many blowout losses? See, Al, I don't agree with that either, because kicking Benny Williams off the team is what sparked this team. The Wake Forest press conference, Benny's kicked off the team 2 days later. That's when they went on their run. That's when Chris Bell opened up his offensive game. They figured it out. Now, some things were not by choice, injuries that they had to adjust to. We haven't even said Chance Westry's name. What's his role going to be next year, right? I forgot to include him in our discussion a few minutes ago. Kicking Benny off the team was the right thing to do, and it rallied this team. Had Benny stuck around and continued to do what he was doing, this thing could have gone off the rails even more. So I don't know why you point to that being the turnaround that led to this. Kicking Benny off the team is what rallied this team to be in the conversation, to be in the postseason, right? They won 6 of 9. Was it from that point? But they won 6 of 9 games pretty much after that happened, right? And I don't want to pick on Benny here, but clearly that rallied the team and it opened things up where it needed to be. So I don't agree with that. This comment, though, when was the last time an SU team suffered this many blowout losses, particularly a 20-win SU team? It's weird. You'll go up and down that schedule, man. There's just a lot of games that pop at you. And that's why that whole, look, I've got my problems with the net rankings. Trust me, I've got major problems with the net rankings and the quad system and how that works. But that's what really hurt SU's net ranking. That's the detail that if we were in a court of law, there's a great line from A Few Good Men, Tom Cruise, right? Where he's like, it's not what I believe, it's what I can prove, right? I can make you believe the net ranking is bad, but what the net ranking proves is you can't get blown out by good teams. And when you play teams like New Hampshire, going back to the first game of the year, and some of those teams that would qualify as teams you need to blow out, you need to blow them out and not have close games with those type of teams. By the way, shout out to Colgate. 5 NCAA tournaments now under Matt Langels. They win the Patriot League title tonight. So you can hitch your wagon to Colgate and, of course, the SU women's team, which will be in the NCAA tournament. So good comments there, Al. I totally disagree with your first one, but the second one is right on point, my friend. From Randy H., who says, Brent, NC State simply played more like a team tonight. Chris Bell was in the witness protection program, partially due to his coach. Let's put that on Autry. He should have been back in the game a lot quicker in the first half. But I digress. And when Judah has to be your leading scorer, it doesn't usually work out well. Well, Judah is their leading scorer. I get what you're saying there. You don't want Judah taking that many shots. And look at the shot chart. He had 21 shot attempts. Let's go through it here. Judah Mintz, 21. Brown, 6. Starling, 10. Bell, 6. Taylor, 5. Cuff plays 12 minutes, doesn't take a shot. Quadir Copeland, 10 shots. You can't have that disparity there, right? Judah's a talented offensive player. It's a joke he didn't make first team All ACC. They would not be where they are without him. He deserves all the accolades he gets. He can't have 21 shots, and your second place guys both have combined for 20. Can't happen. And it's just been one of those things that if that's the case, the offense is off balance, and we see the results of it in a game like tonight. Matt W. says, thank God basketball's done. Lacrosse and football from now on going forward. This team was a major disappointment all season, pulled their usual performance in the ACC tournament. Matt brought up football. Guys, I got to tell you, Emily Leiker and I have some big plans for you for spring football. This is the most anticipated spring football I can ever remember. I think it's going to be the most well-attended spring football game, which is April 20th at the Dome, by the way, that I've ever seen, combining with that's the last lacrosse game of the year when they're going to retire Paul Gates' jersey as well. So that's going to be a big game at the Dome, big day at the Dome, April 20th. Should I just tell you now? No, I'm going to tell our Syracuse Sports Insiders first what our exact plans are for Syracuse football, but you're going to like it. I will say this, okay? I'll give you a little hint. There will be pods. There's your hint. And Matt is looking forward to focusing on that and lacrosse. From Chris K., who says it will be interesting to see who leaves and who stays. Fact is, there is too much dead weight on this roster that Red inherited. Taylor, Hema, and Carey would be better elsewhere. From Kevin S., who says, what a real disappointing way to end the season, but pretty reflective of the season as a whole. Top-notch play, and then they get blown out. But here's to a great 2024-25 season. And that's our Adrian Autry quote from earlier. So that will conclude our Syracuse Sports Insider insight. And please become a Syracuse Sports Insider, guys. Text the word orange to 315-847-3895. My opinion is first. Breaking news, if I have it. First, we've got a very interesting football story coming for you, I believe, tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, guys. I'll give you some details on that to our Syracuse Sports Insiders first. And it's your way to communicate with me directly, your opinions, your thoughts, blowing off some steam during the game, ideas you have for the podcast, certainly your voice, as we just went through, heard and seen on the postgame podcast and the Syracuse Sports podcast as well. All right, let's do, before we depart here, let's do a little house cleaning. Will there be an NIT postgame show? Yes. Yes, there will. Don't know when, because the schedule's not come out. Can't wait for that NIT selection show. Sunday night. Woo! Do they let the intern do that at ESPN? I don't know. We'll see. But there will be an NIT selection show. Should Syracuse accept their bid and go to the NIT, which based on what Autry said, and here it is again, anytime you can play postseason basketball, you have to take it. They will be there. We will be here. Please let me know if you guys would be interested in a Syracuse women's basketball post-game show, just like we did for these post-game shows throughout the year for the NCAA tournament. Syracuse Sports Insiders, send me a text. Are you interested in that? Hit me on social media, at Brent Axe Media on Twitter, best way to do it. If most of you, I'm sure, do follow me on social media, but if you don't, that's where you can find me. On Twitter, you can email me, baxe@syracuse.com. However you get in touch, let me know. Would you guys be into this show for women's basketball through the NCAA tournament? I think you will be. I don't think anyone's going to be like, no, I'm not going to be into that. But, I wanted to ask, see if you guys would dig that. So we'll think about that. I mentioned all the spring football coverage that's coming. Oh, there will be pods. So you think, oh, it's the end of basketball season, right? Things are slowing down. Quite the opposite, actually. Things are picking up. We've got the off-season discussions that's not over yet. That we'll see how far the NIT takes us here. But let's be real, as a lot of you guys said in your text, like we're starting to think about the off-season now, transfer portal, how that's going to go. Like what off-season? This is discussed throughout the off-season, so we'll be discussing that on the pod. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Syracuse Orange Sports, on syracuse.com. So you can follow all the happenings on Syracuse Sports. And, of course, our Syracuse Sports Insiders will be kept up to date on everything because that's the benefit of being a Syracuse Sports Insider. So, yeah, there will be an NIT postgame show, barring some kind of conflict I can't see, but I can't imagine why I wouldn't be able to do it. I'll make an official announcement to you guys if we do the women's basketball postgame shows, but I just want to know your interest on that. Spring football coverage going to be happening, lacrosse, everything going on. And we've got some fun topics planned for you as we go into, the so-called offseason of Syracuse athletics. Not quite there yet. We've got to get through spring football and lacrosse and a few other things, but got some good stuff coming, some good interviews planned, some fun topics lined up, and your participation will be just downright vital to that. So become a Syracuse Sports Insider today, and you will get the priority to be a part of those, to make suggestions, to get your voice and your opinions heard on all of those things. That's going to do it for tonight's edition, though, of Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for SU Athletics. Thanks for hanging with us tonight, and all season, guys, really. Again, there's NIT to come here, but certainly doesn't hurt to. Thank you for watching and listening throughout the season and being a part of this thing and being a part of the postgame show and the podcast itself. We're just getting it going, baby. We fight on, as Coach Jack would say. But thank you for being here and being a part of this throughout the season. Your participation was greatly, greatly appreciated by me, and we really, really do thank you for hanging with us here after all these games throughout the season. So now we wait for the NIT selection show and kind of the sad shuffling that goes on when all the other kids are on that side of the playground and we're on this side of the playground saying, well, I want to go to the NCAA tournament too. Not this year, guys. Not this year. But the process to get back to a point where they will not just be in the conversation, but be in the darn thing next year really starts now, right? And we'll be all over it here on Syracuse Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of it. Thanks to Krause Health. We'll talk to you next time, guys.